Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai.
He gave it away. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Chiravanachari Yamuna Chiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Stotara Pravikacharya's Divine Grace by Chananvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Natakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Shri Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning. Today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the 10th canto, chapter 74, and this is verse 22. Vividaniya karmani janayan yadavikshaya ihate yadayam sarva Shreyo Dharmadi Lakshanam Vividaniya Karmani Janayan Yadavikshaya Ihati Yadayam Sarva Shreyo Dharmadi Lakshanam Vividani karmani janayan yadavikshaya yati yadayam sarva shreyo dharmadi lakshanam. Vividanaya karmani janayan yadavikshaya ihate yadayam sarva Shreyo dharmadi lakshanam. Vividaniya karmani janayan yadavikshaya ihate yadayam sarva Shreya dharmadi lakshanam. Vividaniya karmani janayan yadavikshaya ihate yadayam sarva Shreyo dharmadi lakshanam. Vividani, various. Iha, in this world. Karmani, material activities. Janayan, generating. Yat, by whose? Avikshaya, grace. Ihati, endeavors. Yat, inasmuch. Ayam, this world. Sarva, entire. Sreya, for the ideals. Dharma adi, religiosity, and so on. Lakshanam, characterized as. Translation: He creates the many activities of this world, and thus, by His grace, the whole world endeavors for the ideals of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Please repeat. He creates the many activities of this world, and thus, by His grace, the whole world endeavors for the ideals of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Om Jnana Tiramanda Shaginanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unminitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Sunyavadi Paschadate Shatarine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Veer Krishna Das Goswami Niti Namine Namo Hamsa Nikashaya Prabhupada Priyayate Sudrida Sudi Nisyamam Tasha Vakyunivadine. So there's no purport by the servants of Srila Prabhupada, but I did want to read something by Srila Prabhupada about this very subject. Well, basically, Yudhishthira Maharaj is referring to Krishna. He's the one that's doing everything in this world, creating all activities. And in this, he says, by his grace, the whole world endeavors for these ideals of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. We know this also as the 4 Purusharthas, which is also the 4 aims of human life, of material life particularly. And that's I'm going to say, after doing a little research on it, that's a subject or a topic that most sort of Hindu type of schools of thought think is the all-in-all, these 4 Purusharthas. One leads to another. Religiosity, by the grace, religiosity leads to, economic development, which economic development, when you get some money, you can have more sense gratification, what you're due, and also then at that point, when you're satisfied with all of your material endeavors, activities, then one can strive for moksha, or liberation. And here's what Prabhupada had to say about that, actually. It's very interesting. And he's reading, this is a lecture on the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 9th chapter, text 55. That's actually the last verse in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj to Lord Nrsingadev. And I actually pulled that up too, actually. Let me see, yeah. 7:9:55, yeah. This is when Narada Muni said, Prahlad Maharaj was the best person in the family of asuras who always aspire for material happiness. Nonetheless, although allured by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who offered him all benedictions for material happiness, because of his unalloyed Krishna consciousness, he did not want to take any material benefit for sense gratification. That's the last verse of that chapter. So Prabhupada's lecturing on this in Vrindavan. This is, I don't know exactly the date, but he gave a lecture. He says, my Guru Maharaj used to say that you do not try to preach for getting money. Money will come automatically. On your feet, money will say, please accept me. You should preach very sincerely. That is your business. Never bother that, where is money? Where is money? Money, money, money. Muktir mukalinta jali sevata ashmin dharmarta kama samaya prakti shaha. This is a statement of Bilva Mangal Thakur. It's from the Krishna Karnamrita 107. People are hankering after dharma, artha, kama, moksha, religiosity, economic development, and then sense gratification, and then moksha. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Human civilization begins dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Otherwise, animal. So dharma means the varnashram dharma, varnashram. Varnashram archara varta purushena pura pumam vishnur aradyate. That's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 8:58. So Bilva Mangala Thakur says that you simply become devotee. You don't hanker after this dharma, artha, kama, moksha. No, they will serve you. You do not require to call them. They themselves will come and serve you. You just become a pure devotee. Samaya praktiksha mukti. Why devotees will ask for mukti? They are already muktas. because they have no material activities, all spiritual activities. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate, sa gunan samita yaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So in the platform of Dharma, to become very religious, moral, who can be more religious than a devotee? Who can be more moralistic than the devotee? A devotee is not prepared to kill even an ant. So who can be more moralist? These things are already there. Yash yashti bhaktir bhagavat yan kinchana sarvar gunar tatra samashate suraha harava bhaktasya kuto madat guna mano rate nashati davato bahi. That's one Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 18, Text 12. If one is pure devotee, then he has all the good qualities. Just like Prahlad Maharaj was addressed, Prahlad Bhadra Bhadram Te, Bhadra, a gentleman. Who can be more gentleman than the devotees? The devotees are thinking how these rascals will be happy. Prahlad Maharaj, Sochi tato vimuka chetasya maya sukhaya baram udvat hato vimudhan. My Lord, I am thinking that these rascals, simply for flimsy happiness, temporary happiness, they are making so gorgeous arrangement. So Yudhisthira Maharaj is addressing Krishna in many ways. He is glorifying Krishna as he is trying to convince everyone in the assembly that Krishna is the most worshipful person in that assembly. And of course, there's some naysayers in that assembly, namely Shishupal. And we already heard from Nakula, who is the king, another king. And now Yudhishthira is glorifying Krishna in this way, in a very genteel way, saying that he, by his grace, these things are available. And as we know, the four Purusharthas, they are sort of part of the whole guidebook that is outlined in the Vedas for human development, for human civilization. Just like Prabhupada here says, without these things, it's animal, otherwise animal. And we can practically see it. There's very few people in this world striving for any sort of religiosity. And that is actually the flashpoint for being sort of hooked into the rest of these points, you know. It goes up from there, but religiosity is the base level. Simply knowing and also declaring that there's a higher power, that there's an architect to the universe, that God does exist, and submitting oneself to God in that way, then that's the basis. That's actually the basis for the rest. So that's the religiosity. And then it goes up from there. It's said that once you become, you know, really, and we've heard this before, if God likes you, he gives you everything. But if he loves you, he takes it all away, right? So if God likes you and he sees you, he's turning your face toward you, I'm sure everybody's had this experience, you get a lot of mercy, a lot of grace, and, you know, that's sort of a way to kind of pull you in more and more to get more into God consciousness. And then from there, you can be benedicted some economic development by which you can live a better life, so-called better life, because that's mostly what most people, probably 98% of the world is striving for, is economic development and sense gratification, just forgetting about that first part of religiosity. So economic development leads to increase in sense gratification. And then we see that there's sometimes some, you know, persons that maybe are wealthy, very wealthy, maybe even in the billionaire status, and maybe they go to India. They want to visit some sacred places, or maybe they go to Jerusalem, if that's their religion. They want to visit sacred places there. So then they try to search a little bit more after all of their kind of hierarchy of needs have been met. We're all bound, humans are bound by this hierarchy of needs. At the base level, there's the basics, air, water, safety, those kind of things. And then the next layer is belonging, understanding, group affiliations, being in some kind of a community where there can be support. And, then there's the more subtle things that go up. And at the top of the hierarchy of needs is finally that self-realization. So to get to that point, I'm going to say most people need to have most of their needs met before they even can think about self-realization. Otherwise, people are after money, and we see this now, people are desperate. They need money, they need their livelihoods, they might not be getting enough to eat, and if you're trying to talk to that person about God, religiosity, it's not going to work because they're not even sure where their next meal is going to come from. They're very skittish in that way. So that's most of the world right now. We don't have. I hear a lot about how we have to establish Varnashram Dharma, and we have to do all these sort of things that would help people to Varnashram Dharma, which is basically what this is, or what it leads to. Varnashram Dharma is for the realization of Krishna. I mean, that's what it's for. It's the rules that are set down so people can gradually progress, through their consciousness and, of course, through their actions so they can attain the highest goal. And Varnashram Dharma is a great idea in theory, but before anybody can sort of fit themselves into these parts and parcels of the Varnashram, have to figure out their Dharma. And if they're not able to even think because they're working 3 jobs and they're trying to raise 3 kids and they don't have, very much in reserve to, pay the electric bill, they're not really going to be thinking so much about religiosity. I mean, right? I mean, it makes sense. But when I hear about, this sort of sweeping idea that we need to institute it, nobody's ready for that in this world. This world is still in need of some enlightenment, of that touch point of religiosity. They're still in need of that. They need to find that meaning or that purpose whereby they can go through the other steps to progress as a human being. So, like Prabhupada said, if you're not at this point, if you don't have this basic rules, the 4 Purusharthas, you don't have the basic rules of human dharma or what the point of our existence on this planet is, it's going to be very, very difficult to get out of the animal platform. And there's a lot of work to do in that respect. I mean, we don't really have enough devotees to go out and enlighten the masses in that way, to get to that point where they can actually accept that there is a higher power, there is a higher authority, there is the absolute truth. We actually have one person here visiting now who makes it his business in life to go out every day, except when he's on his few weeks vacation during the year, but he goes out every single day and, picks people off the street and talks to them a little bit about Krishna, makes them feel at ease, and gives them some transcendental literature or maybe some little bits of prasadam or something to help them on their way. As human beings are going life after life from time immemorial, they're not really they're so covered over, it's very difficult for them to hear these higher topics or to even begin to grasp these higher topics, until they have the association of a devotee, of a magnanimous devotee, Patita Pavana devotee, that actually makes it their business to try and go out and give Krishna to others. That's why we do things like Harinam, or book distribution, or just simply friend making, relationship building. That's why we do these things, so we can actually help, or it's said that, try to create a revolution in the lives of of the people in an impious civilization. That's what we're doing. We're trying to change the face of the earth through the Harinams and through this transcendental literature, so they can even raise to that platform. And as King Yudhisthira talked about, it's only by that grace. That grace, that's everything for everybody, that grace. I know that there's some people that aren't really into going out and trying to talk to people, scoop people up, or associate so much. We're told we should only associate with devotees, right? We should only associate. So a lot of times the devotees will just hunker down with each other, and, behind, like Lord Chaitanya did at the time. He went to the Sriva Sangam and he gave everybody, the Harinam. But then what did all those persons do at some point? They were so ecstatic with this process, with bhakti. Bhakti surpasses all of this, the Purusharthas, Varnashram Dharma. If you go straight to bhakti, you don't need to pass all of these other, go through all of these other steps. It cuts it all out. I was thinking about this game when I was young, Candyland, and you went through this whole big long thing to get to sort of the promised Candyland. But if you landed on the right space on the path, even though it was a real long and winding path, if you landed on the right space, you could actually take a big shortcut, way ahead. And that's bhakti. If you're in the right place at the right time, and the mercy of the devotee, a pure devotee coming through other pure devotees, if you're at the right place at the right time in this world, you can get that grace. That grace is bestowed. That's causeless mercy. That's what causeless mercy is. I mean, it's not completely causeless. Probably I've heard from some scholars that maybe the Agyata Sukriti was from another life. Maybe they heard something in another life that they would be able to actually see or hear a devotee or receive a book. There's some Agyata Sukriti, but who knows, The point is everybody is worthy out there. Every single person has Krishna in their heart, every single one. They may be completely covered over, they may have many bad habits or qualities that we don't find to be very, appropriate for our practice. And I can say that, I'm one of those persons. I had many, still do, but now they're just kind of under wraps. Have a lot of bad qualities and things that we picked up, conditioning from so many lives that would make me averse to want to take that mercy or receive that grace, But it's there for everybody. It's there for anybody. And we can't really segregate based on, what we may think would be a ripe candidate. I mean, sometimes, of course, we can see the ripe fruits hanging low, and, they're easy to pick, but many times we just don't know. We don't know who anybody is. if they're a devotee, we don't know who they are. That's why it's so important to always, obviously, treat everybody as you would want to be treated. But also when we go out, I had a very interesting exchange with a person. I thought that one of our cars was completely dead. So I called Geico for my annual free tow. And, tow truck guy came out. And immediately he was, immediately I gave him a plate with one of Sundari's cinnamon rolls, because those are wonderful things to give out for prasadam. Nobody can refuse a cookie. Nobody can refuse cinnamon rolls. Anything that looks like that, they're very eager. So the first thing I did, greeting that person in the yard, was I gave him a cinnamon roll, nice presentation. And he looked at it, and he was so ecstatic. And he thanked me, put it in his truck. And he started to speak very forcefully about the grace of the Lord, this tow truck guy. And he went and he jumped my Prius in a different way, and he gave me a lot of information about, how the Prius works and the battery system, and he was extremely knowledgeable, this gentleman. He was from Durham. And, I said, how'd you learn all this? He said, Jesus told me. He was extremely pious, extremely pious. We ended up having a 20-minute conversation after he jumped the car, just about topics about God. He was talking about, he wanted to get he was making money. This is a side job. He's making money to get a small roadside place where he's ministering to some people, and he wants to talk to more people. And every single point that he brought up about the mercy of God, and God wants everybody to love him and everybody to serve him. And, he was using his own biblical references to talk about. And, I just listened. It was so on point. This guy was he was so ripe and on point, And I wasn't going to go run in and grab a Bhagavad Gita and tell him he needed to read it. He got prasadam. We had a really nice long conversation. We exchanged, information. And I told him I was looking forward to seeing his roadside little mini church, It sounds like a good idea. Gave me an idea. Maybe I should, sit up there at the end of our driveway in a little, like people sit with lemonade stands, and just have a sign and says, Bhakti Yoga, inquire here, or, something eye-catching where people might stop. You never know who anyone is. It's impossible to tell, It's just some tow truck guy. He's all, greasy and whatever, just some guy, but he ended up being really the most cogent and enlightened person I've met in a while, and that will include some devotees. He was really just 100% focused on becoming God conscious, It's such a beautiful thing to talk to people like that, because there's those people out there, and it's nice when Krishna puts us in contact with them. Krishna's putting us in contact with these people for a reason. Somebody shows up at your house to tow the car, or, we've been having construction workers there. They're all getting prasadam. The contractor yesterday asked Sundari, because he had told us we could go in the house when it was all the studs, and give us markers. People like to write, inscriptions or write things on the wood, before they start building over the frame. And he had markers, and he gave them to Sundari. And I don't know what she wrote in there. She ran in there, and she probably wrote a bunch of things. Yesterday, after, receiving a big plate of cinnamon rolls, and he's definitely getting lots of prasadam because he's there a lot, he asked her, what was written all over the walls? Most people really, they don't notice those things. Most people are very covered over. They don't see or hear, even on Harinam. Some people will come right over, they'll immediately make a beeline. They're attracted to the holy names, or they see the devotees. They just want to talk to the devotees. Some people just throw, a $5 bill. They don't take anything. They're just impelled to give money. Some people are like that. Others, they just walk by with their headphones. They're not hearing, they're not seeing, nothing, Maybe they see a little and they kind of just shy away. But any little bit, any little thing, seeing the devotees, smelling a flower, sometimes I give out garlands or flowers, maha flowers, just any little bit. And it seems so insignificant to most people, but to the people out there, to the persons out there who are living these lives and they're suffering and everybody's fearful and they can't stay off of social media and that's a wreck and they're not really very rooted in reality. A lot of folks, they're just trying to survive. They're literally trying to survive. They don't know which way is up. And it's so sad, sometimes when you see people and they practically look like a ghost. They're suffering so much. They can't even, respond. It's almost like catatonic, So that's the importance of bhakti in our lives, to surpass these sort of material, the purusharthas, that's all material activities. And it's said, Prabhupada says in another purport, these are material activities. They're not for the devotee. The devotee has bypassed all of those things. We've skipped. Prabhupada has given us, actually, like this golden ticket, like a pass, to bypass all of these things, economic development, sense gratification. He gives us he's given us this whole framework to help us put it all in perspective. Sometimes sense gratification is, that's a lot of people's main goal in life. And I mean, I see even devotees, we hear that many a stalwart has fallen down in the name of Mahaprasadam. Even the devotees sometimes can fall victim to those things because it's so it's so embraced, and it's also ubiquitous in life, right? We need comforts. We need this. We need a lot. We need a lot of things, and we're trying to strive to collect, but fortunately in bhakti we don't have to think about that much, and it's incumbent on us, really. I can't stress this enough to whoever's listening. The world is really on fire, and we really need to buckle down ourselves and go out. It's out of our comfort zone. If anybody needs any pointers, people can ask Dramila, how do you get up every day and go out every single day for multiple hours in the day to try to just talk to people, try to turn them towards Krishna? How can it be done? Even if you can't do it multiple hours a day, every day, even 1 or 2 hours on Harinam a week, that's it. And if you can do extra, great. But these things are incumbent on us. We're creeping us if we don't go out and try to give Krishna to others. That's the worst. That's the worst kind of devotee, is the creepina. We can't be creepinas. We have to share and share and share again. Make it a point to go out of our way to share with people. So there's a couple minutes if anybody wants to say anything. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Uplifted. Yes. Yes, Prabhu.
One of my, I guess, Shiksha gurus, Ananda Kirtan Swami,
Oh, yeah.
back in San Diego, he always said that the desire to give Krishna consciousness is actually like a characteristic of advancement. And yeah, it's like the devotees that are, we just listen to Rasika stuff and we don't actually just go out and do ABC outreach and stuff. It's kind of like, are we really there? Are we really at that level of needing to hear
Yeah.
high topics? Or maybe we should, I don't know.
That's what Haladar Swami was saying here on Sunday in his class. He was actually really strong about that. No, the answer is no. You know, I mean, we can hear things, but we have to balance what we're doing and hearing with that. And if we're hearing these high topics, yeah, we're less into wanting to help because it's our own enjoyment. You know, we're getting into our own enjoyment. Oh, this is so much nectar. Let me sit around for 3 days and chant and hear the nectar. What about taking 3 hours out of that 3 days and going out on Harinam in a big city like New Orleans or Orlando? What about that? What about that? You know, that's actually what he was saying is only if you're actually attached to Gauranga. Only if you're attached to Gauranga and Nityananda, and will you go and help the fallen conditioned souls. And also, only by the mercy of Lord Gauranga and Lord Nityananda can we even begin to understand these topics of Krishna. Otherwise, it's just going to go over our head. We can't take it in. Yeah. Thank you.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Aravindadalaya Taksham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Akom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalem Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Dipan Dikayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam
Jeev Jaga, Jeev Jaga, Gora Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya, Picha Chira Kole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya, Picha Chira Mole, Baji Bolia Eshe, Samsara Bitore, Baji Bolia Eshe, Samsara Bitore, Bulia Rohile to me, Avidyarabare, Bulia Rohile to me, Avidyarabare, Tomare Loite Ami, Hoinu Avatara, Tomare Ite Ami, Ayu Avatara, Ami Bina Banduara, Keache Tamara, Ami Bina Banduara, Keache Tamara, Ene Jaya Saudi Maya, Nashi Baralagi, Ene Jaya Saudi Maya, Nashi Baralagi, Harinama Mahamantra, loud to me, Magi. 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 Bhakti Vinoda Prabhu, Charane Pariya, Bhakti Vinoda Prabhu, Charane Pariya, say Hari Nama Mantra, Loila Magiya, 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 Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gora Chandra Bole, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gora Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya, Kita Hira Bole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya, Picha Hira Bole, Nitai Goranga, 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 Gora Hari, Nitai Goranga, Gora Hari, Nitai Goranga, Gora Hari, Nitai Goranga, Gora Hari, Jaya Sachinandana, 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 Gora Hari, Jaya Sachinandana, Gora Hari, Jaya Sachinandana, Gora Hari, Jaya Sachinandana, Gora Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Nitai Gaur, Hare Ba, Nitai Gaur, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Nitai Gaur, Hare Ba, Nitai Gaur, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Nitai Gaur. Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radhe, Jaya Radha Golokananda, Golokananda, Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radhe, Jaya Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Lord Gaurachandra is calling, wake up, sleeping soul, wake up, sleeping soul. How long will you sleep in the web of the witch called Maya? You have forgotten the way of devotional service and are lost in the cycle of birth and death. I have descended just to save you. What only true friend? What other than me, what other friend do you have? I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you suffer. Take this great chant for deliverance, Maha Mantra, the names of Hari. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, falling at the Lord's lotus feet, takes shelter of the Harinam mantra, the Lord's holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it all right here. This is what it's about. Chaitodarpana Marjanam, Bhava Mahatavagni Nirvapanam, Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam, Vijabadu Jivanam, Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, Pratipanam Pranamrita Swadanam, Sarvatma Snapanam, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis, Tatrapitani Smarane Nakala, Etadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi, Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga, Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarorapi Suhishuna, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari, Nadaram Najanam Nasundarim, Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamai, Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare, Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha, Kribayata Vabada Pankaja, Stita Duli Sajashim Vachintaya, Nayanam Gadashu Daraya, Varanam Gad Gadaridaya Gira, Pulakarnishitam Babukada, Tavanamagrahane Bhavishati, Yugayatam Namishena, Chakshusha Pravashayatam, Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam, Govindam Virahename, Ashlishava Padamritam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva, Yatatatava Vidadatulam Pato, Madprananatastusa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Oh, my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even